blue and red lights splinter across vinyl siding as my silver SUV sits into a mangled white picket fence shaped like a cartoon smile. A teenage boy is sobbing into a cuffed wrist. The HOA president, wearing his robe and slippers, is filming with his iPad like he's shooting a nature documentary. And on the curb, Helena Driscoll, our neighborhood's self-appointed morality police, keeps shouting to the officers that my vehicle was an eyesore. Anyway, as if aesthetics is somehow a legal defense for Grand Theft Auto. My name is Caleb Ortiz. I moved to Willowcrest for 3 reasons. A quiet cul-de-sac, a garage big enough for my woodworking bench, and the promise of orderly community standards. I work from home as a software consultant. Listen to jazz at a whisper. Mow on Saturdays at exactly 9 a.m. and wave at neighbors like I'm programmed to do it. Within a week of moving in, I met Helena. Tall blonde bun pulled so tight it looked like a facelift clipboard, like a weaponized menu. She introduced herself as compliance chair, which is HOA speak for villain with stationery. She handed me a 3-ring binder titled Community Excellence Standards and informed me she'd be checking in regularly to ensure I was maintaining neighborhood values. We had a simple rhythm at first. I minded my business and Helena minded everyone else's. She cited me for a wind chime that was exceeding the acceptable tinkle level. The violation notice stated it produced ambient noise above the permitted decibel threshold for decorative lawn ornaments. I didn't even know wind chimes had decibel thresholds. She once measured my grass with an actual ruler while I was on a Zoom call, crouched at my property line like a crime scene investigator. When I tapped on the window, she held up the ruler and mouthed 2.8 in. The bylaw maximum was 2.5. None of it stuck because I'd read those bylaws cover to cover, and half of her citations referenced rules that didn't exist. Still, she sent violation letters like chain emails from 2003. I kept them in a folder labeled Helena's fan mail. Spring turned Helena ruthless. She claimed my mailbox was eggplant instead of approved aubergine. I looked at both color samples. They were identical. She walked onto my property to peek through the side gate, looking for pool algae in a pool I don't even own. When I asked what she was doing, she said routine inspection. I told her there was nothing routine about trespassing. She smiled and said, "The HOA has an easement for compliance verification." They did not. She circulated a rumor on the Willowist Facebook page that I was running an unlicensed auto shop because she saw me change my own oil. 3 neighbors asked if I did break jobs. I had to post a clarification that I was simply maintaining my own vehicle in my own driveway, which last time I checked was legal in all 50 states. Then came the drones, tiny quadcopters flitting over backyards, supposedly documenting compliance. I watched one hover outside my kitchen window during breakfast. When I told her to knock it off, she smirked and said, "The bylaws allow aerial observation for enforcement purposes." I pulled up the actual bylaws on my phone and read them aloud. There was no such provision. She said I was interpreting them incorrectly and that her lawyer had confirmed it. I asked for the lawyer's name. She walked away. Meanwhile, her son Tanner, 17 years old with a permanent smirk and a wardrobe that screamed, "My parents buy me everything," started loitering near my driveway. He'd lean against the mailbox I'd repainted approved aubergine just to shut his mother up. He'd say, sick ride about my SUV and ask where I kept the keys. I'd answer in a place called Not Your Business. He'd laugh like I was joking. I wasn't. One afternoon, I caught him actually trying my car door handle. I stepped outside and asked what he thought he was doing. He said, "Just checking if you locked it, man." Neighborhood security. I told him to secure himself back to his own property. Helena appeared from nowhere, speed, walking across her lawn in athleisure and fury. She called him a good boy with a tone that implied the rest of us were feral raccoons. She told me I should be grateful he was keeping an eye on things. I told her the only thing her son should keep an eye on was his own business. She threatened to cite me for aggressive language. I went back inside. On Friday, I woke to my front door hanging ajar. No broken lock, no shattered window, just open like someone had walked right in. My spare SUV fob was missing from the hook by the garage door. The driveway was empty. My first thought was that I'd been robbed. My second thought was to check the security cameras. I opened my security app and watched in high definition as Tanner slipped in through my side door at 2:17 a.m. while Helena stood out at the curb, sipping something from a travel mug and glancing up and down the street like a lighthouse of bad decisions. She was wearing a dark hoodie and leggings like she dressed for a heist. The camera caught her checking her phone twice, then giving a thumbs up toward my house. 2 minutes later, my SUV rolled away with Tanner behind the wheel. No headlights for the first block. I watched him turn the corner and disappear. I immediately called 911. But the dispatcher said, unless I had proof of the theft in progress, I'd need to file a report and wait. I sent myself the security footage and filed the report online. Then I waited. By sunset, the neighborhood group chat combusted. Someone posted a photo of Tanner as the solo driver pulling up to a cul-de-sac party across town. Music, fireworks, the kind of teens that say bro as punctuation and film everything for social media. My SUV was parked at an angle across someone's lawn. In another photo, Tanner was holding a red cup and posing with his arm around a girl who looked equally intoxicated. Comments flooded in. Isn't that Caleb's car? Why does Helena's kid have it? Someone called the cops. An hour after that, my AirTag pinged 3 blocks over with a crash detected alert. I grabbed my keys and drove to the scene. Tanner, intoxicated and temporary, had turned my SUV into a battering ram for the HOA president's immaculate fence. The fence, which Gerald had just repainted last month in heritage white, was now split down the middle like a broken smile. My SUV's front bumper was crumpled. Steam hissed from under the hood. Helena sprinted to the scene and informed officers that I had lent Tanner the car. She said it loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. She said we had an arrangement that I'd offered to let him borrow it for practice driving. Then, with the confidence of someone giving a TED talk, she said the fence had structural deficiencies and wanted to fall. She actually used those words. The officers did not seem convinced. Neither did Gerald Pute, the HOA president. Standing there in his robe and slippers, a man who names his shrubs and had just watched his fence get demolished. One officer asked Tanner directly, "Did Mr. Ortiz give you permission to take this vehicle?" Tanner, still handcuffed and crying, looked at his mother. Helena jumped in. She said, "Of course he did. They have a neighborly relationship." The officer asked her to step back. he asked Tanner again. Tanner mumbled something about needing a ride. The officer asked if that was a yes or a no. Tanner went quiet. I arrived with receipts, literally. I handed the officer my phone and showed him my home security clips. Helena, on watch at 2:17 a.m., checking her phone, giving a thumbs up. Tanner, creeping through my side door, caught in infrared the moment he grabbed my keys off the hook. The dash cam booting when the kid hit start, recording his face clear as day. The AirTag history showed a stop at the teen party on Sycamore Drive. Then the fateful meeting with Gerald's fence at 11:42 p.m. I also pulled up my 911 report filed at 6:32 a.m., 9 hours before the crash. Stolen vehicle, I'd written. Suspect is Tanner Driscoll. I have footage. The timestamp didn't lie. Gerald watched the videos twice, then looked at Helena like a disappointed guidance counselor. He said, "Helena, you brought drones into this neighborhood, and now you've brought larceny." The officer's eyebrows climbed. He turned to Helena and asked, "Ma'am, did you instruct your son to take the vehicle?" Helena deflected with words like community safety test and neighborly borrowing floating into the humid night like mosquitoes. She said, "I should have locked my door better." She said Tanner was just being a teenager. She said boys will be boys. The officer stopped her. "Ma'am, breaking and entering is not boys will be boys. This is theft of a motor vehicle." He asked if she was present when her son entered the property. She said she was nearby. He asked if she aided or encouraged the theft. She said she was supervising. The officer wrote that down. They cuffed Tanner for DUI and unlawful taking of a vehicle. When Helena tried to grab my phone as I queued the footage for email, the officer gently redirected her hand like she was a toddler reaching for a hot stove. Suddenly, the queen of bylaws looked small, her clipboard a useless shield. For once, I didn't feel like the neighborhood suspect. I felt like the adult in the room. 3 days later, Gerald called an emergency HOA meeting in the clubhouse. Folding chairs, stale coffee, the scent of lemon disinfectant, and petty grievances. 42 residents showed up. Standing room only. Helena arrived with a stack of cease and desists she'd written to herself on HOA letterhead. She'd also prepared a PowerPoint titled "The Truth About Vehicle Arrangements." She looked like she was ready for a trial. She thought she'd win. Gerald clicked the projector. Up came the greatest hits. Helena keeping watch at 2:17 a.m., illuminated by a street lamp, travel mug in hand. Tanner ghosting past my hydrangea in a dark hoodie. The side door opening, his hand reaching for my keys. Dash cam footage of him blasting pop music while white-knuckling my steering wheel, swerving slightly over. And then the final glorious crunch into Gerald's fence, which folded like a lawn chair. The sound was catastrophic. You could hear wood splintering. The room gasped in unison. A choir of schadenfreude. Gerald let it play twice. He wanted everyone to see it clearly. Helena tried to interrupt. She said the video was edited. Gerald asked if she had proof. She did not. He played the 911 report timestamp on the screen, filed at 6:32 a.m., 9 hours before the crash. Stolen vehicle. Suspect named, footage attached. Gerald cleared his throat and said, "We have insurance complications, legal exposure, and a fence that looks like a Jackson Pollock in lumber." Our HOA insurance is refusing to cover the damage because it involved criminal activity by a board member's family. That means the cost falls to the individual responsible." He looked directly at Helena. "Effective immediately, Helena is suspended from the board pending removal." A city code officer stood and read from a clipboard of his own. He'd been invited specifically for this. He announced that Ms. Driscoll, the drone surveillance you authorized, violates Municipal Privacy Code, Section 412C. You conducted warrantless aerial surveillance of private property without consent. Fines will be issued $3,000 per violation. We've documented 15 separate incidents. That's $45,000. The room went dead silent. Helena's face went pale. She said the drones were for compliance. The officer said, "Compliance doesn't override the law." He handed her the citation. The attorney hired by the HOA, who looked like a hawk wrapped in a blazer, added that her representation that Mr. Ortiz consented to the vehicle use appears to constitute a false statement to police. That's a misdemeanor under state law. He slid a folder across the table toward Helena. "You'll also be named as a co-defendant in Mr. Ortiz's civil suit for damages, theft, and emotional distress. We estimate your personal liability at $75,000. The room fell silent as the weight of it hit. Someone coughed. A chair squeaked. Helena opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Gerald continued. Tanner received 6 months probation, mandatory driving school, 60 hours of community service repainting the very fence he destroyed. One painstaking picket at a time under Gerald's supervision, and a suspended license until he turns 21. The judge called it poetic justice. Tanner would also be required to write a formal apology letter to me, to Gerald, and to the HOA, which would be read aloud at the next monthly meeting. Helena was removed from the board entirely by a unanimous vote of 41-0, 1 abstention, hers. She was fined $45,000 for the drone violations payable within 90 days or subject to a lien on her property. She was barred by court order from stepping on my property, peeking over my fence, monitoring compliance with anything, including the weather, or coming within 50 feet of me. The restraining order was good for 3 years. She was ordered to attend a 12-week civic responsibility course on Tuesdays at the county courthouse and to reimburse my insurance, deductible of $1,000, plus the full cost of Gerald's fence repair, not from HOA funds, but from her own pocket. The fence estimate came in at $8,200. All told, Helena owed $54,200 in fines and restitution, plus whatever my civil suit would add. The board also passed what they called the Ortiz Clause. No drones, no trespassing, no HOA conducted aerial audits. No board member or their family may access another resident's property without explicit written permission. And no one borrows a neighbor's car without a notarized permission slip and proof of insurance. Violations would result in immediate removal from the board and a $5,000 fine. Helena stood there, clipboard finally lowered, her face the color of skim milk. Her hands shook. She looked around the room for support. No one met her eyes. Gerald asked if she had anything to say. For the first time since I'd met her, Helena Driscoll had absolutely nothing to